Folks, welcome to Sacramento here. We're live here with Barry Melton, the Fish, absolute legendary musician and humanitarian, and somebody who's always been as selfless in his career, helping other people. That's what he gets off on. Barry Melton, welcome.
Hey, I don't know if I get off on it, but yeah.
Right. No, I mean that it feeds you though.
Yeah. Well, I really, the major reason to stay in music is people. It's all about people.
What did that just dawn on you the last half of your life, or when did that kick in for you? When the people aspect of it?
Oh, it's always been there. For one thing, I've always been a jammer. There are really two different kinds of musicians. The kind of people who sit down and write stuff and take things seriously and compose deliberately. And then there's people who are jammers.
Well, this is what I want you to talk about. This is one of the things that fascinated us, is this idea of the blues and the black blues and the white blues traditions merging with the folk. And we talked a lot about the improvisation of leaving the head of the tune and being able to improvise off one of these jazz tunes. That's improvisation.
Yeah.
That's jazz. And I guess what I wanted to ask you about, you said before you thought it was just the music stood on its own, but for folkies and those kinds of cats to improvise, didn't LSD play a role in that?
No, LSD is a drug. I mean, it may have played a psychological role.
Which is important in music.
I have it's not that we weren't on drugs all the time. We were. But it doesn't really dictate what the music was or what it became or the parameters of the music. Drugs are drugs. And they're not... This music would have happened anyway without the drugs, I believe. And I probably said this to you before. The drugs are just a side event to the main act, which was the music. Folk was evolving into an art form that permitted improvisation, and I don't think it was the drugs that did it. It's a fanciful idea.
Well,
I don't believe in psychedelic music.
But you're a jammer, though.
Yeah.
And, do you know your limitations, or do you like to go outside and be fearless?
Oh, look. Yes, I know my limitations, unfortunately. But yes, I like to be fearless.
I want you to just talk about the assumption. Once you leave the head of the tune, there's structure, but it's assumed. It's structure by assumption.
Right, at a certain point in the song. But I'm also a singer and a writer. And there's only so far that a singer can depart. I'm not a scat singer. And that's not part of my improvisational skill. The parameters of things, as it were, singing limits that. If you're a singer, you're stuck with the lyrics. So I'm not going to say that I'm some ingenious on-the-spot poet.
No, and I was actually referring more to just the way things would stretch out.
At that
improvisation.
Yeah, and hopefully we hit the zone.
The zone is what you. That's right. That's what you call the zone.
Yeah, well,
Why don't you break the zone?
Me and others call it the zone.
Yeah, I mean, was that term around before you came on the scene? I mean, I don't know. That's pretty hip for about 63. I mean, you went on the road in 63.
As a young man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, that molded you. You're able to tell your life story through that.
In some respects, yeah. And the people I know and knew, and a lot of the formation of what you currently think of as popular music happened in the 60s in that period. When I was working the basket houses in New York.
Sorry, what are those?
The basket houses.
What are the basket houses?
They're places where different people got up and jammed and then passed around a basket for money. And if you were good, you could make good money. I remember working a basket house with Peter Tork, who later became part of the Monkees.
Right.
But others of that era worked in that scene. I remember playing Washington Square Park when Richie Havens was there. I mean, there are a lot of people who, on the East Coast, were forming the modern style, as it were. And on the West Coast as well, the new milieu. So I don't know. I mean, it's not just me by any means.
No, but this is your interview, so I mean. But I mean, can you talk about the first time you met Lester Chambers? Was it on the beaches with the beatniks hitting the bongos?
No,
Lester
no.
had a bucktooth grill out there that he was playing. He learned the rhythms off one of those things off a Buick, you know?
Yeah. Actually, I got busted with a guy named Steve Mann on the way to the Chambers Brothers house in Silver Lake, California, which is right outside of Hollywood. It's a sort of subdivision of Hollywood. I was busted in 1963.
With weed or?
Actually, no. Steve had a roll of bennies from Mexico. And
Pills.
yeah. And it wasn't, I was driving, but it was Steve's stash. And the cop said he saw Steve make a furtive movement
Oh man.
while we were rolling. Steve got arrested. I was a juvenile. They put me in detention and called my parents. And
Right.
later I ended up, Steve had a suppression hearing, an evidentiary hearing following the incident. And he got cut loose by the judge. And that was in 1964, I think. May have been early 65 by the time it hit the courts. So,
We live in a more punitive time now. If that had happened to you in today's world, you would have been in serious trouble.
maybe. Because now minor amounts of drugs are misdemeanors.
That's true.
In California.
That's right. That's right.
But
Lester. When did you first meet Lester?
they're somewhere in there in the 60s.
But he wasn't. I mean, you moved out to L.A. Was he playing the folkies with Taj? The jug band.
the Chambers Brothers were a jug band before they were a rock band.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They were a jug band.
Uh-huh.
And they played the Ash Grove. They played the clubs, the Hollywood clubs.
But Lester and Taj had a jug band together, right?
I don't know. I maybe.
That's
It
what you
makes
told me in our
sense.
first interview. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when you met those guys. I mean, did you have a calling? I mean, you've been. I'm in the process of writing my book now. One of the chapters is the calling. And you were a decorated defense lawyer, public defender.
I was
defending those that were defenseless, and then
I don't know.
Made many albums as a leader, but also as the Fish. You had a prolific music career. But was music? Did the music choose you, or did you choose? Or did you choose the music?
My mother had me playing guitar at the age of 5. She used to call me in when I was playing baseball and say, "Barry, it's time to practice." And it was not necessarily what I wanted to be doing, but I did it. So I don't think I had a calling. Woody Guthrie was a neighbor. We were living in Brooklyn. Jack Elliott used to hang out at Woody's house.
Absolutely, dude. He was hanging out with Woody, man. And Jack was young.
I know. No, I knew him then.
Yeah.
I've known Jack that long.
Wow.
Since the 50s.
What stood out? I mean, when I interviewed Mason Williams yesterday, he said the two greatest people that he's ever known in his life were Pete Seeger and Ken Kesey, both because of their their outlook on humanity, warts and all. It was all inclusive.
Yeah.
Was Guthrie like that too? I mean, what was inspiring to you about him?
He was a neighbor.
He was a neighbor. That is not. I mean.
Well, I'm telling you the truth. I don't think Woody was a cantankerous kind of guy.
Good to know.
And it's hard to separate the man and his personality and his disease.
Okay, I feel you. So he was erratic. He was a neighbor.
So what can I say?
Do you think that how has the significance of music changed in our culture?
Oh boy. Well, the music that I play.
No. Just in general, the idea of a live music and the idea of music as a profession, music as culture.
Well, I'm too young to tell you the answer to that question and to be authentic.
The music was out on the street when you were coming up. I mean, the culture, the vocabulary was a street music. Now it's in academia. There's a homogenization of sound. Everybody's sounding like their professors. Before, you would have slit your wrists if someone said, "Oh yeah, you sounded just like." You wanted to be an individual, Melton. So you were old enough to answer this question.
Yeah, but I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was 5 years old. So I can't tell you the state of society in relation to what I was doing.
You have an opinion on it? Or?
When I was 8 years
old. I'm not looking for the definitive answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obviously, it always amazes me that stuff that I did that I thought was ordinary has become extraordinary and, quote, legendary.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, I mean, I jammed with people like Doc Watson, with, the young influences on my music. And I was just a teenager. Were guys like Jack Elliott and Doc Watson and Mother Maybelle Carter and the stalwarts of the folk music scene. I went to the
You're playing hootenannies with them, or
I did.
shared the stage with them?
yeah. I mean, I went to the World's Fair with Doc Boggs
Yeah.
and Mike Seeger.
That's badass.
When I was a kid.
That's badass. What were you playing? Just acoustic guitar?
Yeah. I mean, but it was like, you say it's badass, and they were fairly obscure musicians at the time.
Well, I mean, it's all fantasy to me. I wasn't birthed.
No, but what I'm saying is
There wasn't much to do about it.
yeah,
But now you say it's become iconic.
yes.
Yeah. And why do you think that is?
I have no idea.
People are craving authenticity, Melton.
Yeah, is that it?
I believe. And you know,
It's hard to find these days. Harder to find. A lot of the people I grew up with and followed around, like Jesse Fuller, who when I was a kid living in Berkeley, was a legend that can get 10 or 15 people to show up in a shoe shine parlor to hear him play. I mean, you know, how legendary is that? I mean, you know, it's not like he was in demand. I mean, you know, and he was still shining shoes. So, what can I say? And that was his bread and butter. I mean, that's how he made a living. And the fact that he played in between shoes
right.
was beside the point.
Right.
He survived by shining shoes.
Can you talk to the audience about the first gig you did as a duo with Allen Ginsberg? He opened for you, I think.
Oh, it's the only gig.
Only gig, yeah. And where was it? And what was that? Did he open for you, or what? How did that work?
No, we played together
Now, how did that work?
at the Telegraph Hill Nursery Center.
The Telegraph Hill Nursery Center.
Or nursery school.
Oh, this is epic. Country Joe, you. And
No, not Joe.
Joe wasn't.
Me and Alan played together.
Now what? Okay, so explain how that. What was that performance? What was that?
It was actually what happened is Tim Leary had been busted. He was under arrest in Mexico,
That's right.
and
He was on the lam. He was underground.
he was. And Alan wanted to play a benefit for him. We met at a restaurant in Polinas, California.
You hung out in Bolinas?
Yeah,
Dude, that was all the poets were out there.
I know.
Oh, man.
My wife worked at a restaurant out there called the Gibson House. My present wife.
I'm obsessed with Bolinas. I mean, I cannot believe you just... Bolinas is on my... Because Steve Swallow lived out there for a while, the great bass player, and he made albums with Joe Bauer and Vecchio Nanner Banana on the Raccoon label. Really cool, like... And then there were all these poets out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ginsberg he's like, yo, I want to do a benefit, so he got...
No. He knew who I was. I knew who he was. He said, and, you know, we need to raise money for Tim. I knew Tim from Berkeley because Tim had lived in the Berkeley Hills.
Timothy Leary had lived in the hills?
In Berkeley
Holy cow, are you serious?
Yeah. I mean, when I say he lived in the Berkeley Hills, he lived in a house in the Berkeley
Of course,
Hills.
I've been there. It's a very beautiful...
It's expensive now.
He wasn't working at UC Berkeley, though, right?
No, I don't think he was.
So you knew him.
Yeah, not really well, but I knew him. I'd been to his house a couple of times. I mean, you know, not a, you know.
You didn't go to his institution in New York, though.
No,
Yeah.
Milbro.
Milbro, thank you.
No,
So he was a little bit mellower, on the mellower side when you met him?
no. He was never mellow.
I love it. He was burning, man.
You know, actually, my friend Perry Letterman, who was a guitar player.
Is he still with us?
No.
Wavy Gravy loves Perry Letterman. They got busted with DMT on the Golden Gate Bridge, and they got away with it.
I believe it.
Perry Letterman, the most badass guitar player around, according to Wavy Gravy.
He was great. Perry was great. Perry was in that school of psychedelic acoustic guitar players that would include Sandy Bull. I mean, it was a
Gabor Zabal.
Robbie Basho.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a they were psychedelic players on acoustic guitar. It was an art form.
It's amazing how many people have looked out their windows and smiling at you while I do this. So Ginsberg did poetry and you played acoustic guitar, or whatever. I mean,
he actually, if you know, Alan at that time had recently returned from India. Well, not just at that time, but at other times, because I played a gig with Alan in the early days of Country Joe and the Fish in 1965. And he had just come back from India and was singing mantras and stuff.
So he sat in with you guys, or?
No, we played a gig together.
Right. That was with Country Joe, but you said that the nursery center.
This was later. This was early 70s when Larry was busted. 1970.
Got it. So it was Alan. Where was he at this point in his evolution?
He was singing mantras and playing the harmonium, and I was playing like freestyle rock and guitar. And we did a gig together to try and raise bail money and legal fees for Tim Leary. And Tim's significant other at the time went to the gig. It was pretty cool. What can I say?
What are you still learning about today?
What am I still learning about?
Yeah.
Backs. I'm having back surgery on Friday.
Okay, so this will be your last gig before back surgery.
In fact, the reason why I decided to get out of the house and do this is because I'm having back surgery. Coming up. Next chapter.
Yeah, I hope it goes well. I can't wait to see you on the bandstand tonight, Barry Melton. Thank you so much.
No problem.
See you later.